Welcome to At Scale, the Tennessee Achieves podcast. I'm Chrissy D'Alejandro, Tennessee Achieves President and CEO. Tennessee Achieves seeks to be humble but ambitious, disruptive yet intentional, and student-focused while also data-driven. We believe our mission is simple: enhance post-secondary opportunities and outcomes by providing holistic student supports rooted in community and accountability. At scale. But the work is much more complex. Since 2008, we've broken some things in a great way. We've built many things, and we've created something that stems from the idea that a college credential can be a powerful equalizer. From helping individual students navigate the complexities of college to shaping the way Tennessee thinks about preparing and educating tomorrow's workforce, this podcast explores how Tennessee Achieves intersects with partners across our state and throughout the country. Let's dig in with state and national thought partners, business and industry leaders, college and K-12 representatives, and all the others in between that inform, inspire, and interconnect with Tennessee Achieves work. Here we go. Welcome back to the At Scale podcast. I'm Chrissy D'Alejandro, joined by Ben Sterling. Ben, we're back at it again. Today is going to be the most fun. I do think it might be your most favorite day of your life, above your children being born, potentially.
Listeners won't like to hear that, but it may be true. This is like Christmas Day for me in July. Well, my kids have celebrated Christmas in July this week in multiple locations, so maybe it is appropriate that this is our podcast this week.
You love these humans, so that's a piece of it, but you also love this topic and are incredibly passionate about technical education and the fact that our students have various paths to post-secondary. Why do you care about tech ed so much?
Well, I think as a student who was a first-generation college student and had very little guidance in the college-going process, I feel very strongly that had I understood what a TCAT was, that's probably the pathway I would have taken, given the way I was raised and the interest that I had at the time in high school. But I didn't know what it was. And so fast forward all these years later, I have the opportunity in the pulpit, if you will, to talk about this work and this opportunity and pathway for students. And I try to get that in front of as many as I possibly can. I've also spent over 10 years going to high schools and talking to students who don't realize that this opportunity, a lot of times in their rural backyard, is there and leads to these high quality careers and pathways. So for me, it feels personal to me. I didn't go to a TCAT, but I think I probably would have had I known. But I do feel that for a lot of students like me, this is the place for them. So I'm really excited for our guests because I think we have two of the most dynamic TCAT leaders in the state here today to talk about the work that's going on there, but also to talk, as we did yesterday and when we recorded yesterday, about rural impact and what having these opportunities in rural Tennessee, which makes up over 80% of our state, what that means to the local community. So really excited to go with this one today.
Yeah, to continue with your pulpit theme, you talk a lot, like you talk about being convicted. These are two evangelicals of technical education. So I'm so excited to have Dr. Melody Edmonds and Cliff Wightman here. Cliff serves as the president of the TCAT Upper Cumberland, and Melody serves as the TCAT president in my hometown, McMinnville. And so I'm so thrilled that they're here. They are friends of Tennessee Achieves. They're personal friends. I love them both. I cannot wait to dig into this conversation. Guys, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
I feel like every time I have a TCAT question, you both are on speed dial for me. And there are a lot of you across the state. So I would love, first of all, kick us off. Tell us what is a TCAT? What makes it different? What makes it special? And then I would love to just hear, like, why are you there? Like, to Ben's point, it really is a different pathway for students. And I think you both intentionally chose to be there for a reason. Melody, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Well, I can say that I really thoroughly enjoy education in general. I've always enjoyed education in general. So my original path wasn't to go into the education field, but I'm so glad that I did. And the TCAT has been a great experience. I spent several years at a community college, and I think that there's need for both. But the things that we do at a TCAT every day were things that I think have been overlooked, so to speak, for a lot of years. There's been not as much interest in the trades as Ben was talking about. Maybe people didn't know about all the good careers that were actually here, that you could go get a job, and they're quicker training. You don't have to go the 4 years. You can go for a faster experience, because we get most people out within about a year, maybe a little over a year. And it's very exciting jobs with good pay, puts them out in the community, and it puts them in jobs right here, which I think is very important. We're not training them for jobs to send them off somewhere else. We're training them for jobs right here. And so super, super exciting, to be able to do all this and do it right here in your community, and then see those people out there at work. So it's great.
Yeah, when I talk to students about it, I say unfortunately it's Tennessee's best kept secret. Which it's no longer that way. We've done a lot of work to get it there. But especially in 2015, it was. And so it's very much been sort of peeling the layers back. Cliff, talk to us about how you got to.
Yeah, Cliff, you've got a great story.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll second everything Melody said. It's a cool thing to be a part of this, because we can train folks for local, but then somebody, in my experience, you can also go global. So the way I got into it, I'm an original product of the original state area vocational schools. So I date myself. I go back a long way, finished the machine tool program at the Crossville campus, and then the state area vocational school Crossville. And I some people laugh at me that's had multiple careers. I've had 4 jobs in my life. And that counts my entire time with the TCAT, and the other 3 were all machine tool related. And, after I got out of school, I started at a little job shop, and then got into a little bit more of a production base. But I was always fortunate. I never really done production machine work. And I will say this, that tradespeople stick together. And I think that's one of the coolest things about being in this kind of education, is that we know we're producing an entry-level skilled tradesperson, but if you're good and you want to do good, tradespeople will do you well. And that's what happened to me. I was lucky. I spent a few years in some job shops and a tool and die, and then I finally got one of my bosses come, and he said, "We're fixing to fire you." And I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah, but you need to go interview at this place." So I worked for 13 years for a big global company. I spent right at about 18, 20 years in the industry. But so I worked for a big global company, but the whole time that I was there, and I traveled all over. We did some cool stuff, a lot of automated equipment, but the whole time I always had the connection with the school. So when we weren't traveling and doing things, I would come back and do special industry training classes for them for special, which is a unique thing about TCATs. I love the fact that we're able to do that. And that's where, if industry just needs one certain thing taught, we can adapt to that quickly. So I did that with the school, and I was always, helping students get jobs and place them with different folks that I had contacts. And, one day my instructor called and he says, "I'm retiring." My former instructor, and he said, "You need to put in for this job." I did. And I was fortunate enough to be selected. And a funny thing about it was, I never really asked what it paid. Now that was a little bit of a difference, having to adapt to the salary change, but no regrets at all. So I was a machine tool instructor for several years, and doing the continuing ed thing as well. And I'm just like Melody, TCATs, we can put you exactly where you need to be, but there's also opportunities in Tennessee if you want to move forward. And I sort of was doing that route while I was an instructor. And one day, a director then comes up and says, but this time we were the TTCs by then. He says, "Hey, why don't you come up front and do some recruiting for us?" because I tend to be a pretty outspoken advocate for career technical education. Oh yeah, I can get right with it. But well, I did student services for a while, did recruiting and industry development. Then in those days we were assistant directors. That position opened up. I put in for that and was fortunate enough to get assistant director position, which in a TCAT, now they're VPs. That's where you learn the ins and outs of running a school. I'll tell you, but and those were good times. I learned everything you could learn about school. President position opened up, put in for it, and honestly, there was a lot of heavy hitters that put in for the job that I was selected by Chancellor Tidings. So it's her fault. I'll say it that way. But and been here ever since. And I'd say this, that that to me, having walked onto the TCAT Crossville campus all those years ago, and now I'm in the Livingston campus today, but I just flash back to that. But at the end of the day, all the continuing ed I've done, and I apologize to anybody that's ever had me in the universities, whatever, but some of y'all have heard me say this. The only true valuable, in my mind, the only true valuable education I ever received was the one I received at the TCAT. I still know how to make parts, and if this necktie gig played out, it could possibly do it right after this podcast. Who knows? But I'm confident I could go right back into machine shop and make a good living. So that's how I ended up here.
I love that story so much. It's so great. And the trajectory, I think, also speaks very true. Melody, you talking about, we can place you right out, right? I mean, I think there's all this swirl right now around the value of education. Is something after high school actually worth it? And I think you have something so sticky, so tangible. That story is so easily told. But to your point, Cliff, you can take a TCAT degree and run with it, but always have that skill set to come back to if you,
Absolutely.
which I think is really specific to the TCAT in my mind. Talk to us about, Melody, you said you love education. Same. But I would love, we talk at Tennessee Achieves a lot about, we like to put a big tent around the word college, right? College is not four-year university. And I will tell you, after being in Knoxville for 25 years now, when you say college, a lot of people think University of Tennessee at Knoxville, which is obviously an amazing institution, but that is not all that college is or means. Talk about why we want to put a big tent around the word college and how we can continue to work to ensure that every student understands that this high quality credential after high school that you can receive is actually college.
Well, the way I look at that is that there is a big tent around the word college because it's all about people being in the workforce. And that's what we need, is we need people in the workforce doing all the different careers, though, because we can't all be any one thing. The world would not work that way. So we do have a place. We need our teachers, we need our doctors, we need our lawyers. So we have a big place for community colleges and universities giving us those skill sets. But we can't forget that we also need our plumbers and our automotive technicians. I mean, I've said many times, I've got a whole lot of friends that are have their doctorate, but I'm not going to call them if I've got a problem with my car, because probably none of them are going to be able to support me in that. So, that's not going to be my go-to people. They know other things, don't get me wrong, but that not being one of them. So I think it's all about making sure that everybody knows that it's okay if you want to be a plumber, or it's okay if you want to be a doctor. It's okay, whatever career field you choose. And that's really what I like to see, is that, there's a need for everybody. There's room for everybody. And we really just, more than anything, to make our world work, we need everybody out in the workforce. And so that, to me, is what it's really all about.
I just wrote down the person you call probably went to a TCAT when you
Yes,
need somebody to help you
absolutely.
call.
Absolutely.
Uh, so you're talking about how you'd have these roles that oftentimes are filled by these TCAT graduates. One of the things we talked with Melanie Heath from Lumina, and in that podcast we talked about how across the state of Tennessee they vary greatly. The economics in East Tennessee are different from the economics in West Tennessee. And Cliff, you are now president of multiple locations, and they're not too far from each other, but I'd imagine that in Livingston and Overton County, the needs are different than what you'd even find in Crossville and Cumberland County. And I was talking to a superintendent in Kentucky a couple weeks ago about TCATs. He was really interested in how our technical ed works in Tennessee because it's very different in Kentucky. And I was like, well, the really cool part about TCATs is if in Crossville or in McMinnville, somebody needs 10 welders, you guys can fill that gap. And I think that's so unique. You don't find that across the country. So Cliff, can you talk a little bit about that flexibility and how and why that's the local piece of it?
I think from a local aspect, one of the neatest things about, and I've had opportunities to go all over the country, different higher ed systems. One of the neatest things I think about TCATs, and it's actually a requirement by our accreditation body, but I think we would do it even if it wasn't. We have advisory committees, folks that are still out in the industry. I was one. I was advisory committee years ago. And that's the folks that say, if you have a plant, say here in Overton County, you have an industrial maintenance, welding, machine tool, whatever, you have people from this area that are still in those industries. Well, they may have an entire different need than the folks say in Cumberland County and across the state, Warren County, wherever. But what is neat about that is that we have enough flexibility, even though we all try to have the same curriculums. Statewide, TCAT instructors can all get together. Each program has a president that is over them. And if somebody in West Tennessee is saying, hey, we're starting to see a lot of this, well, that company may be a little bit further ahead a company in, say, Middle or East Tennessee as far as they're advancing. So what we do is, it does create a little bit of a little extra burden on an instructor. So you have to constantly be able to teach the new and the old. You're always adapting to whatever is going on in the community. And it's such a cool piece of that to have those real active advisory committee members. And I mean, they'll do it outside of normal meetings. I mean, they'll pick up the phone and call an instructor and say, hey, the last student that you had, we've changed to this and we know you guys needed that. Well, we're flexible enough. We can incorporate different kinds and different levels of training to adapt to where they're all over the state. They can go anywhere, any industries that's moving in. And to kind of tag on to what Melody was saying, something that's neat about our system, and I mean the TBR system, is that, sure, obviously I'm TCAT proud, but when you spend as much time in industry as I did, you will see that there are certain jobs that, I'm proud to say I'm a machinist, but there are certain jobs requirements that TCATs obviously do not teach. And that's where our community colleges come in and our sister universities. And we have these articulation agreements to where if a student that's went through a TCAT program and they're working, in a given area and they think, hey, I want to move into something else. Well, that may be something a little bit more on the professional development side or something that TCATs are not so much. I mean, we're geared toward strictly their trades education, but they have that option. They can move right out of the TCAT, right into community colleges, pick up. It's a seamless transfer. So they're always as a continuing education. But the big thing is they're still tied to those industry relations. And I think that's what makes our system a cut above a lot of other ones. And, and we're making a lot better strides with articulation agreements, especially with some of the universities are starting, to come out. So, yeah, it's just a cool thing. It's just, we have to be able to adapt to those, just like you said, different regions have different stuff, but we take those back and we take that input and we adjust accordingly.
Yeah. That's so great. We had Chancellor Freeman from UT Martin on,
Yeah.
and he was talking about how they've built a relationship with TCAT Northwest, and now
Mhm.
there's a full transfer to go all the way through at UT Martin. That's so unique.
Cool.
I think it speaks volumes to the last decade or so in Tennessee and how everybody plays really well in the sandbox, right? And if you put students at the center of the conversation, what's in the best interest for students? And I do think that there's something to be said for these on ramps and off ramps, and it all feels very seamless to students. I would love if you guys would both give me some perspective. I think oftentimes when you talk to people about the TCAT, they think welder, right? That's it, right? Like you talk about a TCAT, and I've done this with students, I've done it with grown-ups, like, and they're like, well, I mean, it's welding, right? I mean, the grown-ups get excited because apparently, welders come out and make zillions of dollars.
They
Did
do.
you know? This just in. But then you talk to students and they're like, well, I don't want to go into welding. And it's like, well, they offer more than welding. So talk to me about what programs you offer, how that directly affects the workforce in McMinnville or in the Upper Cumberland, because I think there's a richer story that you guys are telling, and we want to be hopeful in sharing that.
Well, sure. I'll tell you about our programs. We have new ones that will be coming on board. I have to throw this in as a little extra. We've got 2 brand new campuses coming along. And so Coffee County should be finished sometime next year and start.
That's Manchester for
Yeah.
our listeners.
Awesome.
And the Warren County McMinnville campus will be, excuse me, probably in 27 be finished.
Oh.
They're doing footers right now. It's going to be a much larger campus. So programs will be growing, but currently we have automotive technology. We have machine tool. We talked about that. Of course, we have welding and industrial maintenance, building construction technology. We have cosmetology, computer information technology, truck driving, practical nursing, and the residential, commercial, industrial electricity. So we have lots of different options. Also, on another note, we have the only ones, well, not the only one on one of them. Massage therapy, we have one of 2 programs that are in the state for TCATs.
Know that.
And then
I did.
reflexology, we are the only one in the state with reflexology.
What's
So-
reflexology?
I knew Bing was going to ask that. I was
Okay.
waiting on it.
So that is, have you ever heard of like where you go and have your feet, where they look at your feet and they determine different problems that you have from your feet? You heard of that?
No, I'm learning.
I
right
would
now.
love to hear what they said about your problems based on your feet, then.
They would say this guy
We're
needs
taking you to
therapy.
McMinnville on a field trip.
You will have to come by. Now,
Get
remember,
checked out.
here's the great thing about TCATs. You can come here and get your hair cut. You can come here
Uh-huh.
and get your nails done. You can come here and get facials. You can come get massages, and you can get them to look at your feet.
They might
Oh.
call the police if I take my shoes off in that building. So.
Sounds like a day at the spa. Honestly.
Yeah, a day at the spa.
Weld and get your nails done.
That's
The
right.
new
I love
buildings
it.
all kind of look like spas, anyways. They're so beautiful, honestly.
Within a few feet of each other, you can go do all these things right here. It's all happening, and you can just walk from one to the other.
So you mentioned practical nursing, and this past year, it really occurred to me that students don't realize how good of a medical on-ramp TCATs are. You have so many students who are interested in going into allied health programs, and they look, and if, let's say, their local community college doesn't have what they're looking for, they start to look at a lot of four-year institutions, and academically that may not be their best step. Financial aid wise, in a lot of cases, it's not their best step because they're not qualifying for the aid that they would through Tennessee Promise. And so they had no idea that you could start in practical nursing or get your CRN at a TCAT and get started there. And Cliff, you guys have some of that there too. You want to talk a little bit about what that on-ramp at a TCAT looks like?
Yeah, and the thing too to add to what Melody was saying, not all TCATs have the same programs. We're pretty close with McMinnville. We have Surge Tech as well. I think there's only 3 or 4 of them in the system. But when you talk about those positions and those classes, it is counterproductive for a TCAT to teach anything that's not going to get anybody a job. Now, what's funny, and to add to Chrissy about everybody says welding. Well, yeah, they're still welding and they're still all those machine tool, but I don't think people understand. Like now we're working on AI welding. And so, people, they think, well, it's grimy. Yeah, it does pay well. Same way with auto tech. Auto tech now is like diagnostics. I mean, it's like, safety check things and things like that. So a lot of it, which can lean toward the aircraft maintenance and things. But as far as the on-ramp, you're exactly right. There was a little tidbit was passed on to me one time about one of our sister community colleges where they received so many applications for the RN program. One of the, and lots and lots, and obviously, space reasons and things, you can't take everybody. I mean, everybody would love to, but one of the biggest cuts to get into an RN program was if you had the LPN. So you're like, you're ready, you're a shoe in. And all of them too, every TCAT is geared to where we have those stepping stones. So like an industrial maintenance student, part of theirs, they can transfer to welding. Surge tech students, if they decide somewhere through the program, they don't want to be a surge tech, they can move into the LPN or vice versa. It's just the coolest system, same with HVAC techs. HVAC, when they start getting into the actual gauging and the PLC programming of like huge chiller systems and stuff, well, that's where it's an easy transition from that right into a maintenance program. And from that right into a stepping stone if you wanted to become a mechanical engineer or electrical engineering design system. So yeah, it's all becomes a stepping stone to something else always. It is it's a cool way of educating. And like I said, you're not going to see a TCAT that's going to teach anything that there's not work in, and that's something that we all have this big realization. I told people, when you get to be the president, you deal with a lot, which is, it is what it is, but there's only two real focuses. That's all there is. At the end of the day, it's two focuses. One, you train the students to go to work with industry, and two, you keep industry full of trained people. That's why I think the TCATs have become so pivotal in luring all the industry into our state. Industries are doing the research as well. They're seeing those stepping stones where they're thinking, okay, we can hire somebody as a production person or a machinist, but they can see that the tie that we have with the community colleges to move them on into more of a SPCs type role or things like that, industrial engineering. So it works well.
It does work well. And, I think we talk about this from a rural standpoint. Obviously, TCATs exist. There's a TCAT Knoxville, TCAT Memphis. But, when you think about fact, which is something that's top of mind for us right now, something near and dear to me, having grown up in Warren County. Ben wishes he grew up in rural Tennessee. Unfortunately, he did not. The accent would tell you something different.
I live in rural now, so I made the move.
You're making up for it. Making up for lost time. But, I think about the impact that you're both having in your communities. True for, Motlow State, true for Roane State also. So I don't want to disparage like the community colleges in these spaces too. But when we think about rural impact, we think about how do we provide students with opportunities that they may not have ever thought that they could have. How do you think about the rural impact that you're having, and how can we at Tennessee Achieves be more helpful to you guys in those ways?
Go ahead, Melody.
Okay. Well, I was going to see if you wanted to jump in or I'll jump. But rural, obviously, because it's rural, they have fewer workforce opportunities. So I think that's where the TCATs are even more needed, in my opinion, because there are fewer options out there for students looking for, or not necessarily students at that point, maybe even just young adults out there looking for work in the area. And we are training for the work that's out there in the area. As Cliff said, we're doing those things that we've heard from employers. We need people with these skills. This is what we're wanting to hire. So we're making sure that that's done. And I think as a state, we have to think about the companies that are all looking to locate in Tennessee, they're seeking that skilled workforce.
Yep.
And we need to have that there, even in the rural areas, especially in the rural areas.
Especially in the rural areas. Absolutely.
And so that to me is really key. And that's what we're heavy on doing, because like if a new company is coming in and they needed something that we didn't have to be able to skill all their employees, then it might be we would do some studies, but we would possibly be able to start a program that would help them get the trained workforce that they're looking for. So I think that's the really good niche that we play. And we're very, as we talked about before, very flexible, very adaptable to those things. And that's just key, because the world is changing. All these careers are not the same, and the jobs are not being done the same as they used to be. And so that's where we come in, I think, and that's what makes us keep our rural communities running and keeping us as good, vibrant communities.
I think for me, what sets a TCAT aside, especially for rural, because, if you look across the state, the majority of the TCATs are rural. You take out the Nashville, Chattanooga, Knoxville, Memphis, Jackson, maybe, but even Jackson's sort of rural. What I think makes TCATs unique about that rural component is the fact that, TCATs we're just old home folk. These are people that works at the school that people in the community know.
Mhm.
And I think it builds that comfort level when a student comes here. And, we're real proactive about spreading the word by using people that are from the rural communities that have went on and they've done well in whatever given profession, to come back and spread that word.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just crucial. TCATs, we're notorious for hand holding. If you have a trouble with application process or whatever, you just roll into the campus or, call on the phone and somebody's going to help you. And generally they're going to communicate in a way that a student can understand that. I'll be honest with you, this might be veering, but that's what I love about Tennessee Achieves. I love, some of you may have heard me say this, I love that mentor component. When you bring in folks from the community because let's face it, in rural communities, you still have mindsets that are extremely, extremely hard to change. Communities that are very, very tight knit, and
My dad used to say that people in Warren County's heads were made of cement. That's a direct Jeff Walker quote.
Well, and that's the truth. And gosh, we deal with it all the time, because you look, especially Melody now. I mean, we're in, but
Oh yeah, you're in the
few-
thick of it.
few large cities. Cookville's a pretty good sized city, but other than that, it's it's still rural when you get an outline. That mentor thing of somebody that's in the community, that's a known person that everybody can relate to, or that a parent knows, because that's a key factor.
Oh yeah.
Totally.
Of getting these high school students to commit to TCAT community college, whatever. That's a huge factor. The parents still have a lot of say in that. And if they're seeing somebody that they're comfortable with, and they've known out of the rural community, that's a mentor, that they're saying, hey, these people's going to help you on board to TCAT community college. I love that component of it. It's just that good, that homey feel, and at the same time, Melody hit it on the head. These companies that may want to locate more to these rural areas, I mean, all they have to do is research TCATs, research community colleges. I'll say it this way. You don't end up with big companies like Nissan, Volkswagen, Ford, General Motors, and I could go on, that come to what is, as a whole, a rural state. There's something that's drawing them here. And I just like to think that we have a huge piece in that. And that's why I appreciate what you guys do so much is, I kind of think you guys get that rural aspect too, of getting the mentors together, and it just clicks. I like it.
We like it too. We think that it is sort of the secret ingredient. And I will tell you, much like the two of you, I have also traveled the country talking about Tennessee Promise, Tennessee Achieves. And I will tell you that when all you offer students is money to go to college, you do not see the same results. It has to be. I mean, you talk about hand-holding, Cliff. We also are in the hand-holding business, but I see it as sort of a, a hand up. It's like, it's not a handout. It's like, let's like help you, because I mean, as someone like me, first in my family to go to college, I would have just, I think about the impact that a mentor could have had, not just to me, but to my, my parents who didn't go to college and wanted me to find success, but just were very shaky on how to get me there. So, I think it goes a long way. We are having a rural impact celebration in Crossville.
Yes.
I hope you both are going to be there. Cliff, I especially hope you're being there.
Yeah, we're in trouble if you're not there.
Yeah, we're going to be in all kinds of Melody. I hope you could make it. I'm so excited to celebrate this huge milestone. We just crossed 53,000 students who have graduated under the Tennessee Achieves umbrella, and been 29,000 of them are rural. I'm probably going to get it all wrong.
9 of 10 Tennessee high school graduate, 9 of 10 rural Tennessee high school graduates are Tennessee Achieve students, which is just wild to me.
Yeah. So we're excited to talk about this alongside you guys. I would love, as we close out, this has been so great. I love that we've been talking about the impact that you guys are clearly making in communities. But, I'm notorious for asking about a magic wand question. Like, if you had a magic wand and you could create this ideal space for students, what would you change, or what would you pour gasoline on?
What would you get rid of?
Big. What would you get rid of? Oh yeah, that's always a big one. We talked about that with Melanie too. She was like, look, no one ever wants to get rid of a thing. So anything you want to get rid of, Cliff, might be where we get you fired from your job.
I'm gonna wait and see what Melody says.
Well, I don't know. I guess I would just make some changes, and that would probably entail getting rid of some things. But one of the things that we have seen, I don't know, I'm sure Cliff's probably seen it as well at his campus, but students come to us many times now that wasn't present earlier, where they don't know basic tools when they get here. There's some things that are not maybe shared at home that are, maybe that's a difference. And I would really like to see like a pre-TCAT kind of a session in middle school, to start them knowing how to identify tools and maybe slightly how to use them. Because I think if you start earlier, that's really important. And if they don't know those things, they don't know what they would like. So it's really hard to choose a career that's going to involve these tools that you don't even know how to identify or how to use. You don't know if that's going to be for you. And I guess following up on that, when you get to high school, one of the things that I like is I like the try before you buy kind of things, where you can get a little taste of something. I'd like to see us have a class in high school where they could spend 2 or 3 weeks on all the CTE things and just kind of have like a lot of appetizers.
I love that.
Like projects with them, because I think if they actually got in there and did a project, that would help them a lot, because they could see maybe they really do love welding, or maybe they find out I really hate it. And I feel like either way, that's a win, because they determined what they like. And so I would really like to see us allow some kind of little appetizer thing, because I think right now what we do is we kind of make them choose a path. And they're choosing a path. And again, if they don't know basic tools and have all those understandings, it's like, well, how are they choosing and how do they know? And we might have somebody who's really skilled in some area that we're really missing. And so I think if we had them to try it, just little short projects sessions. And so that's kind of my idea of what I'd like to see. But
I would have loved that in high school. I grew up around race cars, and
yes,
I could work on a race car. Had no idea I could do that as a job. Right. I had no idea what that would look like as a job.
Right.
School student. If I'd had that connective tissue at school, I can imagine it would have made a difference. That's a great idea.
Well, Melody, she's hit on all everything, and she's absolutely correct. I love the fact now that the high schoolers are allowed to come through the summer school and get it paid for. That kind of can give them a little bit of idea of what's going to TCAT. Something that I wish, and our system is doing a pretty good job of this, and TCATs locally have done it a great job for years, is inviting the industry folks. If we had like a liaison that that could bid you, that's you another job. We'll add that to your list of stuff to do. Bringing industry folks into the K-12s, the rural settings, or the tours. That would be, I think it'd be awesome. We try to get guidance counselors and things to go into industry as much as they can, because I think one of the biggest misconception about, like Chrissy said, well, it's all welding. There are welding shops that are climate controlled that you can't even see fumes in the air, that are paying great money. And I think more openness to allowing, especially high schoolers, maybe middle school age folks, opportunities to come into industries and actually see what's going on in the industries, and see that it's not, the rough environment is what everybody
The
perceives.
grimy,
Yeah.
dirty.
I mean, yeah, that's still out there, and honestly, some of those are your best paying jobs still. But is a chance to get those students that early exposure to it. And I'm sure it can be done web-based videos, things of that nature to be done, that just somebody can take, hey, here's your tour in the day of a person working whatever. And I think that would be neat if we could get that, but in an organized way, that it is, I don't want to say a requirement in school, but just more and more exposure to them coming. But and it's hard. I mean, I give the K-12 folks, students have all these graduation requirements and things to be met, and they have the schedules are far more rigorous than when I was in high school. But I would like to see that. You guys have done a great job, I think, like adding the tool stipends, the gas, all that. Those things, just all those enticements to say, hey, anything you got a question about, we got you covered. We've got your back in this. And if you're wondering what it looks like in Nissan and you can't go to a tour, here's your video. Watch this. And what do you have to get there? Those sort of things. I think that's and there again, like I said, our system is doing a good job of that on the industry side, of asking industry as a whole what they're needing, and then just spread that right into the high schoolers or just general public. I think that would be neat to have that option.
Yeah, I love that. I think exposure is so critical. I mean, we talk about that here all the time. I almost feel like we catch them too late, to your ability. We've got like a captive senior class, but it's almost too late. It's like middle school might be the play, as you said. So we'll get Ben on that, Cliff, making sure that all the middle schoolers understand the TCATs. This has been so fun. Ben, is this everything that you ever hoped and dreamed?
I think it's great. I mean, obviously, I love talking to my friends at TCAT. So I feel like if we run into each other in the wild, as I like to say, it's always a good time. But I hope this is informative for listeners to have a better understanding of what a TCAT is, the role that it's playing. I think one of the things that I've always observed, and it's funny you started this off, and I'll close it with this, is that I've somebody called me a TCAT evangelist one time. I don't know, maybe the second or third year I worked for TCATs. So it's funny that you kind of kick this off with that. But it's the role that the TCAT plays, not just from an education standpoint, from a community building standpoint, is so important. In these rural counties, they really do depend on TCAT to train, but also by training these students, elevating their lifestyles and allowing rural economies to continue on and thrive. So this is such an important part of Tennessee's economic future. And it's really fun to have such good people leading these institutions. And they're two of others. And there's so many great people in leadership in the TCATs in Tennessee. And I've been fortunate to get to know so many of you guys over the years, and I take pride in talking about it, because I think it's so important for students to not feel that it's anything other than a world-class education. Whether they're going to a 4-year TCAT community college, all of those are a great next step after high school, and I want students to see it as that.
Yeah, and I really look forward to our continued partnership. I think about when Tennessee Promise, for example, was first introduced, only about 10% of students were actually following into the TCAT. And this year we saw 17%. So it is a growing, there's growing interest, and I think there's more to do. But I'm so thankful to be in partnership with the two of you and all the TCATs across the state. And I appreciate you guys making time today.
Thank you. You guys are great partners. We appreciate you very much.
Absolutely. You know, you guys have changed the demographic on the TCAT. I don't know if you've noticed that or not. Used to be back in the everybody used the day. I'll do it. The day. You know, I can remember when the average age of a TCAT student were folks in their late 20s.
Yeah.
And that was the ones that woke up and thought, boy, things are not going good for me. I need to, change in my life. We got a lot of folks right out of high school now, and that's changed since you guys have evolved as well. And I think it's cool. We're getting them right out the gate. In other words, the excuses, there's no more excuses. There's funding there to go to school if you want to go. And I love that piece of it. So thank you all.
Yeah, no, we love it too. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See y'all.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of At Scale, the Tennessee Achieves podcast. Each conversation is a step toward a deeper understanding of how we can collectively expand opportunity and increase post-secondary access and success for all students in Tennessee. To continue following this work, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Subscribing ensures you never miss an episode, and your rating or review helps others discover the stories and insights that we'll share. Together, we're not only supporting students, we're building Tennessee's future workforce. Thank you for listening.